Today on the channel from the Jakks UFC line, we've got Dan the Beast Severn. Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another Jakks UFC unboxing and review. And I think we've only done maybe one other of these on the channel, if that. Does not happen very often. And we all know Jakks from our Jakks Classic Superstars, Ruthless Aggression, Titantrons, Bone Crunchers. You guys get the whole deal there. But Jakks truly a groundbreaking company in many different ways, and one of those was bringing UFC action figures to the mainstream. Now, these did not necessarily set the world on fire back in the day, as we see right now with Jazzwares, kind of a Jakks offshoot in some ways. Jazzwares not setting the world on fire with UFC figures currently via Jazzwares. I think a lot of that goes, not to get on a big soapbox, but I think the people that follow the UFC are not necessarily action figure collectors, and you don't see a lot of little kids watching UFC, and maybe the correlation to action figures is a bit of a stretch throughout. A lot of people that train MMA and stuff, maybe they're just not into action figures. Obviously, there's crossover. There's people like me out there that trained in MMA back in the day that love the action figures, wants all the action figures, that kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, the UFC fan does not cross over into the figure game like wrestling, like Marvel, like Star Wars, so on, so on, so on. That being said, I did really love these figures when they came out, and I like the Legends line. I guess the line inside of a line, which we saw Jakks do a lot with their TNA figures. We saw that of there. We're seeing it a little bit with Jazzwares right now with the Luminaries, and they did that with some of these UFC Legends. Some groundbreaking Legends from when I was a very young kid. Really enjoying UFC at UFC #1, and Dan Severn is an all-timer in the UFC game. Kind of the generation before my generation of really watching, and then getting into the Matt Hughes eras and things like that when I was really hard into the UFC. And I loved the UFC. Like I said, I trained back in the day, back when it wasn't popular at all. It was a lot funner then. I don't know. Things have changed for me with UFC, and I know some people just absolutely love it. It's huge. It's bigger than it's ever been. But somewhere 10 years ago or something, things got lost in translation for me. Not everybody, but definitely for me. I think it became too many shows. It was great when there was maybe 2 shows a month. We had a UFC, we had a Pride event. You could really get jazzed up for it. Now it seems like there's a new event every single day, and that just makes oversaturation, makes it harder to follow, and that's where I got lost in the shuffle, unfortunately. But I did not get lost in the shuffle of action figures. I did not get lost in the shuffle of Dan the Beast Severn. A favorite of mine, boring to many, obviously a wrestling crossover, so I could see people buying this figure to have with their wrestling figures, as Dan Severn did have a cup of coffee in the WWE, as we know. Former NWA champion, running circuits, wrestling against Butterbean, doing shoot fights, you name it, everywhere. Dan's done it all, and is a super nice guy. I've met him on a couple of occasions. Very soft-spoken, nice guy, and a very cool figure. But we're going to do this unboxing like we do all the other unboxings on the channel. We're going to take a look at the packaging. We're going to talk about it. We're going to unbox it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see where it goes from there. So here's Dan the Beast Severn. Now I had to buy an extra one. I got one at a good deal, one to open, as I never had this one loose, as I had quite a few loose. I got a nice mint on card set of these, but Dan Severn was one I always wanted loose, and one of the reasons was I love this t-shirt on here. If you know Dan Severn, he always came to the ring with a wet t-shirt like that, pouring some water on him, stuff. Just, that was his look, and they captured that to a T here in this UFC figure. I just really do like this. Looks phenomenal on package. I love the packaging that goes on here. Looks like kind of the UFC Octagon, UFC right up there. Legends 5, I believe, Series 5. Yeah, Series 5, not necessarily Legends Series 5, but Legends in 5. You get what I'm saying there. You got UFC Collection, UFC 5. Little glamour shot. You got the Ultra Flex. So this is the extra articulation on these figures. Very akin to a Deluxe Aggression figure. You guys are familiar with that. With our Jakks Talks, Dan Severn, Zuffa, of course, the old big company there. You got Dan Severn on the side right there. Very iconic photo of Dan Severn. Same thing on the other side. And then you get to the back. We got the cross sell. We got the warnings. We got the UFCs. We got the tail of the tape. We got Dan Severn. Glamour shot. Love it. Looks good. Let's read the back. Let's see what it says here. from Coldwater, Michigan. And I've heard they have the coldest water in the United States. And he was born in Coldwater, Michigan, and fighting out of Coldwater, Michigan. 6'2", 250 pounds. The Beast, Dan Severn. The rest of Series 5, we got Dan Severn, of course, Stephan Bonner, Matt Serra, Matt Hamill, Kenny Florian, Lito Machida, and Rampage Jackson. So that was a really good, solid era. That was my era. That was when I was training during this era. That was a fun time. And I enjoyed all those guys for different reasons. Matt Serra, watch out for the foot stomps, as they always say. Matt Hamill, of course, was a deaf fighter. Did he beat John Jones? I mean, basically, it was kind of one of those deals, but he did technically. Rampage, we all know about Rampage. That would be a good one to have. I do not own that one. But very, very interesting. Dan the Beast Severn. All right, without further ado, let's pull him out of the package. Let's get it going here. Let's see what's doing. See what's doing with the Beast. And he is out. And there's the back of the package. You got that UFC right there. Looking good. See you later. Get out of here. Oh, we got the double plastic prison. It's been a long time since I opened one of these bad boys. But there's old Dan Severn. Looking good. Looking awesome. Let's get him out. See you later. Double plastic prison. All in. See you later. There it goes. Oh boy, the Beast is in the house. With a mustache you could set your watch to right there. Almost looks like a little bit like Freddie Mercury. Very, very cool here. Very cool. Now, one gripe I always had with these Jakks UFC figures was they're really small legs. They really had too small of legs for me, and I don't know, maybe try to make it a little bit more realistic, but it doesn't match the upper side of the body down low, so that was always a little gripe with me. Got nice knee pads here. Of course, getting a lot of reuse they can from the WWE line. Makes a lot of sense. Make the most out of your molds, as we always say. This foot looks a little off-centered down here. But it does have the boot articulation or shoe articulation in this one. You can adjust up and down, side to side. Nice blue kind of Nike knockoffs down here. Obviously, you can't put the Nike logo on there. You do have double jointed knees on this one. We always say it. A lot of this stuff really was the forebearer for what we see with Jazzwares, what we see with Mattel in this current day and age. Single jointed elbows, no pinless action, anything like that. Wrists do move all around. We do have the nice UFC patented UFC gloves on the hand right there. The head moves all around, up, down. Not a ton of up, down, a little bit more down than up. But you do get the side to side, all that kind of good motion there. Like I mentioned, the shirt is awesome. I really do like this shirt. I'm a little bit surprised here that it's not the Velcro shirt. I figured it'd be that Velcro. You could Velcro the back, but it's actually like a traditional shirt. So much like we saw with, what was it, Super 7 New Japan Pro Wrestling shirts. It's the same kind of deal there. Man, this is very hard to get off. Very hard, because you guys know these Jakks figures, especially the Deluxe Aggression style, are extremely muscular in the arms. Makes them very hard. I'm fighting this thing. It does not want to move. Oh, never mind. We got a little slit on the side here, so that does help a little bit. But boy, still not a lot. Still very... Oh my gosh, I pulled the arm right off. Are you kidding me? Luckily that will pop back in, but this is extremely difficult to get off. I don't know if I like that. Obviously, hopefully it goes back on. That's the hope. But a very cool shirt. I could see people grabbing this shirt, using it for different characters, just because the wet look on there looks extremely awesome. But hopefully this arm goes back on here. It should. And it does, of course. But very interesting. That pop out. Oh, there we go. I got it back in. Now, we know our Jakks Deluxe Aggression figures. These got a little bit more articulation. You got the big ab crunch going on, but you do got the butterfly shoulders. You know, obviously UFC, you need to get people into crazy moves, things like that. You need to get into some submission moves, so you get a little bit more articulation with these guys, which is really nice, especially when the joints are tight. But when these joints on these figures get loose, man, they are a hot, hot mess. Always reminds me of like a frog when they get loose. Luckily, these are brand new, out of the package, very tight. But Dan Severn, gotta admit, very, very plain Jane figure. Just a guy in black trunks, blue shoes, that's it. Luckily, they have this shirt here. That really does help the aesthetics of this piece for sure. But great articulation, especially for its time. You walk this back, 10, 15 years, whatever it was. This is really up-to-date articulation of what we would get now, currently in 2022. But I like this Dan Severn. I just like Dan Severn because it reminds me of the old days. A lot of people think of him as a very boring fighter, but fighting's different than wrestling. Hey, whatever it takes to win, whatever gets you that purse at the end of the day, hey, if you got to be boring, you got to be boring. That's what I always said. Obviously, it's not as fun for fans, but it's as fun for his career, fun for his wallet. And that's what I would say. Of course, you put it next to another great mustached wrestler, and UFC fighter, of course, legend, Pride fighter, Don the Predator Fry, one of the all-time greats, the two mustache guys, both wrestling backgrounds, of course. Don Fry, one of the all-time greats. I wish he would have been more into wrestling. He did wrestle for New Japan Pro Wrestling, very similar to my boy Boss Rutan. Boss Rutan, my favorite fighter of all time, just legendary, and I feel like he was so ahead of his time. Where he would be now, with his charisma, everything else, would have been an amazing wrestler. He did have a cup of coffee in New Japan, but would have been an amazing wrestler in the WWE, WCW, whatever, if he would have went that route, but he did not. Speaking of some other fighters and some comparisons here, we got Ken Shamrock from the Mattel Elite line. Very, very underrated figure. I would love to see a new Ken Shamrock in his blue gear. I think that would be very cool. Ken and Dan the Beast Severn, of course, many matches over the years. Blood feud, some would say. You can see kind of a scale comparison there. And then, of course, the brand new AEW Jazzwares style figures. Much, much smaller, of course, but very good figures. These did blow away my expectations. It is a little bit disappointing. They just don't seem to be really lighting the world on fire and selling. Doesn't seem like we're going to get a Series 3 of the AEW Jazzwares figures, unfortunately. But you never know. I guess stranger things have happened, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it. So there it is, a little UFC comparison, a little one-off UFC video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comments if you picked up these UFC figures back in the day, or if you're picking up the current UFC figures back in the day. And maybe you can give your 2 cents on why UFC style figures do not kind of cross over to the action figure game as well as wrestling does, for example. And I think we touched on the points, but maybe there's something we missed. Feel free to chime in with that. And of course, as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the old notification bell, follow along on Patreon where you can get this video weeks, sometimes months early if you're a Patreon member, with exclusive content as well. And then, of course, SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson, and ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Kyle Peterson. So for Dan, the Beast, Severn, I am Kyle. I'll see you guys all real soon.